All right, I have a confession to make. I've spent a lot of time thinking about a lot of things health-wise, but I realized I wasn't thinking too much on the moral side of the spectrum. I strive to be the most moral person that I can be, and that is with respect to every action that I take in life. So I've been thinking long and hard about the diet that I've been on, and I've decided that it is time for me to go vegan. Veganism is the philosophy that involves attempting to the greatest degree possible to minimize animal exploitation, animal suffering, and obviously that includes total animal deaths, obviously, because animals are life too. I mean, they're individuals themselves. And so I've really, I don't think I've been living up to that standard, eating all of this meat that is from factory farmed animals that are being are suffering, are living in horrible conditions, are being tortured, you know raped, all of this stuff. And it's awful, these circumstances that they're living in. And it's also just reflected in the meat itself and in the product, with these frail eggs and all this stuff. And it's not the most ethical approach. I haven't been living up to that standard. I've been contributing towards a business, a business that is literally involved in perpetuating this horrible living habitat, this horrible habitat that these animals have to live in, and it's unacceptable morally. And so that's why, once again, I'm going vegan. Veganism is designed; it has a goal in mind to reduce that to the greatest degree possible, and so that's why, starting this week, I'm going to be making a return to my local farm to buy grass-fed, grass-finished beef, pastured pork, pastured eggs, truly pastured eggs, because at the end of the day, these animals have far greater living conditions. They have far more open space. They live, great lives while they are alive, and then at the end of their lives, we go ahead and we eat, effectively the equivalent of 1 to 2 cows per year worth of meat or beef. And we eat many chickens that, we eat many eggs that aren't from live chickens, or even ones that in many cases are even embryotic, if you want to call them that. That is the most ethical way of eating, logically speaking. You see, a lot of people think that, eating a salad is harmless, and eating an animal is murderous or evil. In reality, that's not true, because this gets into a distinction between deaths that are directly caused by what you eat versus deaths that are indirectly caused by what you eat. The amount of animal deaths that result from the tilling process alone of large swaths of plants grown all across the world, and therefore all of the sort of climate contributions that we keep talking about as well, from multiple air miles worth of transportation to take those plants from all across the world and import them into other countries so that we can eat plant-based, regularly every single day, multiple times a day. Is that really good for the environment? Is that really good for the animals themselves? Okay, the tilling process alone, not to mention the continuous recycling and growing of crops on soil that depletes organic matter from that soil and leads to less carbon sequestration from the atmosphere as well. Okay, there is land destruction as a result of monocrop agriculture as well that needs to be considered. It is a very, very, very convoluted, very, very intricate picture when it comes to this. What's going to happen to the environment whenever, if ever, there is a massive increase as people continue to go carnivore in animal products, even if they're eating 1 to 2 cows per year worth of meat. What's going to happen? That's a good question, and we should look into that, because we never know what to anticipate when it comes to environmental changes. However, what I can say is that with the current data that we have now, the current empirics, but also the current logic that we always have at our hands and at our disposal, the most ethical diet, the true vegan diet, is a carnivorous diet. That is the true vegan diet. So yes, I am vegan. I am vegan. I am as vegan as I can be given my circumstances, monetarily, environmentally, circumstantially. And what that involves is eating a carnivorous diet bereft of large amounts of plants. I eat very minimal plants. Very minimal. How many insects die from pesticide and herbicide usage on plants in order to actually grow them to an acceptable degree for human consumption? Think about that. The insect deaths, the tiny animal deaths as well that are involved in that process. And how many plants are actually grown for human consumption that contribute to that death? You have to eat so many plants in order to get the same sort of satiety feeling, if you get it at all, which you really don't. You get a full feeling, not a satiety feeling, that you would be able to get from meat and animal products. This is ridiculous. It's something that people sort of take for granted, that they don't really look at it too deeply, but it is true. A salad is not harmless. It's not as directly harmful, if you want to say harmful as the word to use here, if you want to use that word, as steak and ground beef and lamb. Okay, yes, true. But it doesn't mean that it is completely exonerated. In fact, it's quite the opposite. It's still complicit in those deaths. Death is a part of life. Death is a part of life, and we must be willing to accept that. But that is why I say I try and eat as ethically as possible, and that includes me going to my local regenerative farm and buying food from there, which is about an hour away, by the way, from where I am. And the reason I say make a return is because they've been out of stock of the meat that I've been buying for the last few weeks, actually, because I've basically run them out of their meat, that specific kind. So yeah, now they're just back in stock. So I decided to, make this little video to talk about, why I'm vegan and why I'm going back to, I'm turning to veganism. I'm turning to veganism, which is a carnivore diet. A vegan diet is a carnivore diet. The vegan diet that we think of as a vegan diet is a pseudo-vegan diet. A completely pseudo-vegan diet. So share this with all your vegan friends, if you're even friends with them. If you are friends with them, you can also tell us in the comments how you possibly found the ability to do that. How do you live with them in your life? How's that relationship? Anyway, yep. So my message to you, my dear viewer, go vegan. It'll change your life. There's frankly too much noise in the health space. There's a lot of opinions, there's a lot of claims, but there's not enough rigor. If you've ever found yourself wondering, where's the integrity? Where's the intellectual honesty? What does the evidence actually say? Then you and I are probably wired much the same way. For me, health isn't something I can afford to take an impetuous approach to. That's why I'm dedicated to the disciplined pursuit of truth. That means questioning assumptions, understanding mechanisms, and being willing to change my mind when the evidence demands it. Now, I've been thinking about building a community around this very mindset. Not just for carnivore people, I know that not everyone is there yet, but for people who value veracity over popularity, who want to explore health through the lens of evolutionary biology, biochemistry, statistics, and critical thinking, without bias, ego, or dogma. The question is, are there enough of us to make this worth building? That's why I'm asking for a simple show of hands. There's a link below. It will take less than a minute to register your interest. There's no payment, there's no commitment at this stage, just a signal that this is something that you want to be a part of. And if there is enough interest, then I'll invite a small group to join as founding members. You'll help shape the direction, the standards, and the values of this community. And you'll also get the lowest price that it will ever offer, locked in for life, as long as you remain a member in good standing. All I'd ask in return is your honest feedback. Your integrity, because if we build this, I don't want it to just exist. I want it to stand for something. So if this speaks to you, you got to click the link below and raise your hand. Let's see if there are enough people to make this real.